Well, we have been talking for a long time about how the Wisconsin Elections Commission runs Wisconsin elections, particularly its maintenance of the voter list, of the voter rolls. And of course, the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, very successful in the past in forcing the Elections Commission to do what it should be doing on a very routine basis, and that is cleaning up the dirty voter rolls in this state. What are you looking for now from the Department of Justice, and what are you hearing from the Department of Justice on those voter rolls and the Elections Commission handling of that?
Yeah, thanks for talking about this issue. This is a really important one. We've been harping on it for some time that Wisconsin simply doesn't do enough to maintain a clean voter list. Federal law, the Help America Vote Act, requires every single state to have a centralized database of registered voters, the voter list. And it also requires each state to maintain and administer that list at the statewide level. So Wisconsin doesn't do that. We have just a few over 1,850 municipal clerks all around Wisconsin who are each responsible for maintaining and administering that list. At the state level, WEC basically throws their hands in the air and says, well, we don't have the authority to kind of do everything. It's really up to the local clerks. It just doesn't comply with federal law. So DOJ took notice of this. They sent that letter, as you said, to let WEC know they were investigating. WEC responded with, in typical WEC fashion, an incomplete, almost evasive response. It's actually incredible to me how it seems like almost every decision this agency makes is just the wrong decision. Everything they do is just ridiculous, and of course no different here. So a couple of the bigger concerns we have with it is, one, whether Wisconsin even complies with federal law, and I don't think that they do. And we suggested some follow-up questions to DOJ to get at the root of that. You know, who actually is in charge of our voter registration list here in Wisconsin? WEC says it's not them, but it has to be them under federal law. That's a real problem. The other one is, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It raises a good question, and that is this. I don't know if WEC tried to respond as it has in the past. Hey, again, our hands are tied. This is what state law tells us. This is what legislators tell us to do. The control really is in the hands of these local clerks, not the central office that is supposed to be in charge of the state voter roll. Is that what they're suggesting here, and does the law need to be changed?
Yeah, basically, and there are issues with Wisconsin law here. There's a lot of questions even as to what happens when WEC removes, or whether they even remove, ineligible voters from the database. WEC always says that they don't. They claim that they make them ineligible or mark them as ineligible to vote in the voter list, but they never actually remove those names from the voter list, and that too is a concern with them. And here in Wisconsin, we have same-day voter registration. When you register to vote, the state is whoever is registering you to vote is required to compare your voter registration information with the state's DMV database, just to see if those match up or not. WEC says they're doing that if somebody submits an electronic voter registration form, and then they said, oh, but if it's a paper form, we follow a different process. Only they didn't explain what that process was to DOJ, despite U.S. DOJ explicitly asking them for it. So, one thing I would always give advice to my clients on is if, U.S. DOJ is open an investigation against you, you need to be, very responsive and try to, it's a serious thing. And I think WEC is not taking this seriously. And if you read their response, which is available on our website at will-law.org, I think anybody else would come to the same conclusion.
Yeah, no doubt. In fact, read it. It is interesting, but it is not surprising because Ann Jacobs, of course, who is the Democrat chairwoman on the Wisconsin Elections Commission, is basically at open war with the Trump administration and conservatives in the state legislature, and has been for a long time. So this should not come as a surprise. But if they are indeed not following federal law, there should be consequences, of course, for that, and that is really a matter of time and where the Department of Justice goes. Will Deputy Counsel Lucas Weber joining us now to talk about this issue with the state's voter rolls and WEC's responsibility over that. You said before that you believe that just about at every turn, WEC makes the wrong decision on these major issues. Let me ask you this. Yeah. Is it wrong by incompetence, a failure to understand the law? And now remember, these folks, a lot of these folks on this commission are attorneys. They ought to know the law. Or is this willful incompetence?
You know, I guess your guess is as good as mine. I don't know what's driving it on their end, except to say that it does seem like every time there's a major decision for WEC to make, they choose the one that's either of questionable legality or just outright wrong. Another example of this is, one of the questions DOJ asked WEC was, what are you doing to ensure that non-citizens are not on the voter rolls? And WEC basically responded and said nothing. They said, oh, well, we've got a complaint-driven process, so if somebody makes a complaint about somebody, we'd investigate it. But they're not taking any steps to affirmatively do that. They're not auditing the voter rolls to check that stuff. And these are serious problems and things that, frankly, WEC could be and should be doing, and they're just not. And it's a problem for our state. It's a problem for our election integrity. I mean, certainly even one unlawful vote is one too many, and we need to have confidence that there are none.
Good Lord, yes. I mean, that is a huge concern for 2026. The left has so much more to lose if they do not win in 2026. They understand that. And we know they have used questionable tactics, suspect tactics, to say the least, as we know in Wisconsin's largest cities, to bring in leftist organizations, so-called nonprofits, nonpartisan nonprofits, absolutely trying to gin up support and votes for Democrat candidates. All of that said, you mentioned that they're not auditing any of this, so we don't know the absolute impact. We don't know how many non-citizens may have voted in recent elections. We don't know ultimately if ineligible voters remain ineligible on election day or through the election cycle. I mean, this could be even more substantial than what we're talking about now.
Exactly, and we need to do more. We absolutely must do more, and it begins with WEC, and it would hopefully this U.S. DOJ investigation into the state and into WEC's actions here yields some results and leads to better outcomes for our state.
It would be helpful. They could maybe start here in the name of transparency. How about not charging $12,500 every time an organization or an individual wants to look at the voter rolls and to see for themselves where the voter rolls are in terms of whether they're dirty, whether they're clean, whatever. But we do. Isn't that in and of itself the high cost? Every time you want to get an updated version of the voter rolls, you got to pay $12,500. Lucas, is that an issue under federal law as well?
Yeah, I think in state law, it's actually an interesting point here because state law actually requires WEC to charge that fee. So we, and there's some question as to because DOJ asked for the list. They asked WEC to send them the list, and WEC responded and said, hey, we're required to charge for that list, but you can buy it on our website is basically what they responded with. And I think that's certainly something that I expect U.S. DOJ to follow up on. But you're right. I mean, even for everyday citizens who want to engage in basic government oversight here, if you want to buy that list and see who's registered to vote in Wisconsin, it's going to cost you, 5 figures. That's insane. And that's bad for our democracy. It's bad for our republic. So we need to fix all of these, and certainly happy again that the federal government has taken notice here and that the United States Department of Justice Civil Rights Division has opened this investigation into Wisconsin. And again, very hopeful that it's going to yield some strong results for the future of our state.
All right. So final question for you. What is next from the federal level and perhaps litigation?
Yeah, I think my hope here would be the next step is U.S. DOJ takes our letter, our suggestions, and passes those on to WEC and asks some of those follow-up questions. And then certainly if WEC doesn't give satisfactory responses or continues to be evasive and incomplete, I would expect US DOJ to take legal action against the state. And, I don't know what the timeline on that would be, and obviously can't guarantee what they would do, but that would be my expectation. So, and again, I think that would be a positive outcome because it would help ensure the integrity of our elections. And I think that's frankly, a bipartisan issue, one of the few remaining bipartisan issues that most Wisconsinites can get behind. I mean, just last November, we adopted a constitutional amendment to prohibit non-citizens from voting, and it passed with, like a 70% plus rate. So
Right.
I think this is something all Wisconsinites can get behind.
Election integrity is obviously central, critical to having faith in our elections and the continuation of core beliefs in this republic. Lucas, thanks so much for your time, and we'll continue to follow up on this story.
Hey, appreciate it, kiddo. Have a great day.